Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a rather unusual Jigmaster. You don't find them around much, but they're really nice reels if you do happen to run into them. This is the Jigmaster 505HS. It has the narrow frame profile, like the much sought after 501s. They are narrow framed, and in this case, this reel comes with ball bearings, one on each side, which makes this thing quite the performer as a reel. So you can see that spool will spin very easily. It's very castable. The problem with on this one, as I've been testing it, is that those bearings are kind of worn. So I talked to Dan, who's the owner of this reel, and I suggested that while we go through a tune-up on this reel, we also replace the bearings. I recently ordered and just received the bearings for the reel. So now we're going to show you how to take that apart, how this reel is made, how to replace the bearings in this reel, and how to keep this reel fishing for a long time. So as many of you know, I like to take the external pieces off first. I'm just going to remove the screw on this one, then we'll take the side plate and work on that. But I also like to take the time to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic. That includes the members of law enforcement and civil service, as well as the folks that are doing things like food delivery and maintaining our transit systems and everything else that goes along with keeping us in somewhat of a normal environment. You know, this Delta variant now is just wreaking havoc again. We're seeing upticks in the caseloads, mostly with the unvaccinated, but still kind of scary out there. And we thank everybody who's putting themselves in harm's way to keep us safe and to restore us to health if we've contacted that deadly disease. I've taken off the screw that holds in the handle, but before I remove those parts, I'm going to remove the side plate. This is a single screw take apart. You back it off in a counterclockwise manner and then pull out on the spring and turn the side plate. It comes stuck on the spring. There you go. I just didn't have the arm strength to do it that way. And here's your internal workings of that Jigmaster. Now this Jigmaster is different than the other Jigmasters. So the parts are not interchangeable, so don't make that mistake and thinking, okay, I've ordered parts for the 500 before I'll go order them again. These are not the same parts. Not the same design. I think this reel is made in China, I'm not sure. I don't see... Oh no, this one was made in the USA. If it doesn't say made in the USA on it, it isn't. In this case, this one was made there. And I'm going to go ahead and take the side plate off now and remove the bridge. We're going to do a total service on this. We'll take it all apart, make sure it's cleaned and lubed, but because of that bearing noise, we want to make sure that we can replace those bearings. So Penn uses a lot of parts interchangeably. On this one, interestingly enough, this side bearing not belongs, but it was part numbered for a 40 Senator, and the screw bearing on the other side is part numbered for a Penn 10. Now, the Penn 10 is a fun little reel. That's the Penn 9 on steroids. It's a Penn 9 that has ball bearings in it. That's another reel you can cast a mile when doing it properly. We took the 4 bridge screws out. Now we want to move the yoke into the up position. That makes removing the bridge easier, and then you can just pop the bridge out. And this bridge has the screw on the bridge, so you don't have the issue here, or the spring on the bridge with the anti-reverse dog, so you don't have that issue. All right, that's the side plate there. We're going for the bearings, remember. I'm going to take all of this apart and clean it, but that bearing is important, as that's the first part of this one. So this is what it looks like, and the bearing should just push through now. Sometimes you just need to give it a little poke. It's A lot of times some grease and light gets in there and just jams it up. Be careful, but that's all you need, just a quick swift hit with a, I used a screwdriver in that case, and I knew that bearing wasn't going to be reused, so much for that. Alright, I think I mentioned before this came from mysticparts.com. They are an authorized Penn parts reseller. Great folks down there. If you need Penn parts, I highly recommend you going to them, and they'll make sure that you get serviced, and the turnaround time is great on that. Alright, this is the bad one. I like to return the bad pieces to my customers just so that they know the parts have been replaced. Before I go any further, we're going to clean this up. Just a quick shot of a penetrating oil. In this case, I'm using WD-40. You don't have to use WD-40. Any penetrating oil will serve as a general degreaser, and it'll get all that old grease and grime and junk out of there. You just want to make sure it's clean. There's no sense getting inside a reel, spending all the time there, and then not cleaning the reel. So, alright, this just presses back in. You saw how it came out. It just goes back in the opposite way. Okay, so we've got it set in here. I neglected to tell you, this is actually two pieces. This is a bearing and a cap. You don't need to buy both, but they generally come together. If you are going to the aftermarket, you're not going through Penn parts, you can remove this bearing, usually, and just get a standard measurement on that bearing. But the bearing is seated now. You can see on the outside of the cap that we've completed that. So let's go ahead and complete this side then in terms of the assembly and get this thing serviced. I'm going to put the two springs that control the yoke in there. One of the things this is a high-speed reel, and this one has different parts, as I mentioned. In the Jigmaster, it's actually a little bit higher speed than that, if I remember. I believe that the main gear is off of a 320 system, and this is a smaller gear than the traditional pinion gear on a Jigmaster, so that will give you a higher gear ratio as a result. Fishing reels are about big gears turning little gears. If the bigger gear is bigger and the smaller gear is smaller, then you're going to have a higher gear ratio. Alright, so I have inspected the teeth on the pinion gear. I'm just going to give that a good greasing. You're just going to press down when you go to assemble your yoke. Grab your jack and hook it over that stud. And to hold it in place, it's always a good idea to kind of just press down on it like that and set it up. We're going to take a look at what's going on in the main gear now. Pull all of these off. We're going to pull off the gear sleeve. That's held on by a little pin. You just see me push the pin through at this point. I use a little awl to do that. And then you can pull up the sleeve because you want to make sure that this sleeve here is clean. You can go ahead and use a paper towel or something to towel that off. Clean it up nicely. This is your dog assembly. As I mentioned, the anti-reverse dog spring is on the bridge, just like the other Jigmasters, so you don't worry terribly about that. Give this a little bit of a cleaning here. Pull it through to make sure that you get the old grease out of the gear sleeve. Go ahead and put that gear sleeve back on. Push the pin in, and when you push the pin in, make sure that it clears the ridge here. Alright, these look like they're in good condition as drag. You can use drag grease on these. I'll do that. This is Cal's drag grease. Get a little bit on there. Use your gloved hand. I may not have mentioned that I have a glove on this hand, but use the gloved hand. Wipe off any excess with a towel. Go ahead and put that back on. Check your gear itself. This one's very clean. That might have been some of the noise that was happening there as well, in that the wheel was very dry from lubricant or lack thereof. So we're going to just go ahead and put some on there. And you don't need to put it all around. The rotation of the gears will spread that to the teeth you may have missed. There's 3 drag washers, 3 metal washers. This is the sequence of the metal washers. It goes a round washer, the eared washer, the round washer. The round washers have flat sides inside. They're called keyed washers. And the one in the middle with the points is called an eared washer. Okay, first of the metals. These metals are very clean. We don't need any cleaning there. Again, we'll do the same thing. We'll dip that in the callus grease. Make sure that it only has a light coat on it. Come on back and put the eared washer in. We'll take the top washer. Again, do the same. Now that's to keep the washers flexible. That doesn't add any max drag or anything when you go ahead and lubricate them. It's just a way of keeping them clean, keeping them flexible so that they do not dry out. This one had the 2 tension washers. Usually you only have the 1, but that has 2, so we're going to leave it with 2. Then I'm going to go grab the 4 screws and we'll finish that side plate assembly. So we had this set up now. I'm going to push down to get this cleared. And because that anti-reverse dog and spring is right on the bridge, I don't know if I'm doing this right, you can see it. You don't need to do anything fancy other than make sure that you have the clearance to put the bridge in, just like that. There's 2 studs that this bridge sits on, so you know you have it properly aligned. The fully threaded screws go on the bottom part of the reel. And I don't tighten them all the way up. I snug them, but I don't tighten them because I want to make sure that I have alignment with the other holes first. And the partially threaded screws, this is one of the 2. They go up top. They go through those springs that we put on the other side. Sometimes you have to rattle and roll those to get those to clear the spring or clear the jack assembly. So if you like this kind of a video where you see how reels are made, how they're taken apart, how they're serviced, then I'm going to recommend that you subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. I post frequently, and you'll learn a lot in terms of all kinds of reels, because I just don't work on saltwater reels or conventional reels. I work on anything that comes into my shop. And lately a lot of things have been coming into my shop. So it's freshwater, saltwater, it's spinning, conventional, level line, low profile. Just about anything that can be fished and does break winds up in here. Right, now we're going to just put the star adjuster back on. You need to make sure that this is going on square. I'm having a little bit of an issue right now getting it square, but if you just kind of power your way through, you may wind up cross-stripping these. So please take your time. Wait for it to get square. It's square there. If you're spinning that post, go ahead and use the handle as a little bit of a wrench so that you can tighten it down. We'll do that now. Now, if I didn't take that gear sleeve off and put lubrication in, I would put oil in here at the moment as a basic service. But I just kind of like to do all the reels that I can remove the gear sleeves on. I like to take them because it is a common failure point when you get those 2 grooves there kind of filled up there with the dried lubrication. It does bog the reel down significantly. So it doesn't take that much to push that pin through and to make that happen. Okay, well, we're doing the same thing here. We're just trying to get this squared. We don't want to cross-strip the threads on the inside of this one. And once you get it square, you can use your wrench to tighten that down. I use an Allen Tanny wrench here. It's an aftermarket product. It's a little bit thicker and a little bit longer than the one that comes with your Penn reel. Don't rush out and buy one. If you're just doing your own reel and you're only doing it once a year, use the Penn wrench. If you're doing a lot of these, you do find that there is a value in having a little bit extra leverage and having a wrench that doesn't slip under that handle screw when you're going to put it back on. Alright, and we'll just put the tie down on this. We'll go over and do the other bearing. We'll service that and make sure that everything's ready to go here. So on this side plate, we didn't oil that bearing coming in, but that bearing is accessible through this hole here. So I'm just going to take my reel oil and just give it a good shot in there so that that soaks. Here's your spool. This is the other bearing. Now this one doesn't poke out, if you will. This is a screw out bearing. This is also a spool adjuster. So when you go to replace this one, don't try to hammer it through or anything. You're not going to be successful. And we can replace it with this one. Again, I believe that there is a cap and a screw to this. This cap and screw has a single unit and a bearing inside of it. Just you may be able to just get that bearing out of there. In this case, if there's a price difference, it isn't significant. Some of these parts are only sold as a set. All right, that one was going in cross-threaded. You don't want to do that. You also want to use a screw that has an appropriate, or a screwdriver that has the appropriate width for it. So I just switched over here. All right, we've oiled the bearing. We have a spool that goes in next. I look to put grease on this side of the spool shaft. That's because when you clean this bearing, you don't get the grease inside there. And while I have this open, I'm also going to put a little grease up top here on the jack so that it slides a little bit easier through the ridge. When you go to install, I always recommend that you install in the off position. I'll go ahead and put that back on, tighten the case up, tighten the screw up, and we'll give it a final test here, make sure everything's going. Okay, well, I'm over tight on that bearing, so we'll back that off a little bit. You need a little bit of movement. Look at that. Nice quiet spool operation. Nice smooth. That's how you can tell. It wasn't this bearing, but it doesn't make sense not to replace both of them when you have a bearing issue. It was this side plate bearing here, and looking inside I can see a lot of accumulated dried grease and dirt, but this one will just perform forever. All right, there you go. A whole lot different than when we started a couple of minutes ago. That's a nice, quiet, smooth operating reel with good grease and proper maintenance. And I hope you've enjoyed this and enjoyed watching it. If you did, again, please subscribe and hit notifications. If you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, leave that in the comments section. Maybe you're stuck on reassembly of a reel, or have a question about something that may have broken in a reel. Leave that in the comments section. I do try to respond to as many of those as possible. If you have a reel that needs to be serviced, contact me by email on the business card that follows. The phone number's on that business card, but I don't have an opportunity to call back that frequently, so an email will generally get you an answer faster. And if you like the video, please like it. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing you a great day. Please stay well, stay healthy, and stay fishing.